Every night at exactly 3:33 a.m., he came in. He never said a word. Always the same set of items. A light bulb, a box of matches, and a child's toothbrush. And always a banknote long out of circulation. The last customer. The store was empty. Outside, a fine drizzle misted the street, as if the sky had forgotten whether to cry for real or fall silent. The yellow light above the entrance flickered, its relay clicking inside the old casing. Inside, it smelled of plastic, vending machine coffee, and packing film. Just an ordinary 24-hour shop on the outskirts, where no one lingered longer than necessary at night. He was used to nights. No one wrote, no one waited. Everything here was predictable, and that was exactly why he clung to it. Mark sat behind the counter, leaning back in his chair. The security monitor showed 5 black and white rectangles, each buzzing with static like an old TV. He knew the camera angles by heart: refrigerators, the snack shelf, the back entrance, and the front door. At 3:32, the camera twitched, like it shuddered. Just for a moment, a flicker in the feed. He didn't even flinch. It had happened 8 nights in a row. Always the entry camera. Always at this time. At 3:33, the man. Not old, not young. A short gray coat, a briefcase with a lock, like from another era. A plain face, but somehow impossible to remember. Eyes always cast down. He never spoke. Just walked past, picked out the same items, and came to the counter. Tonight was the 9th night. Mark was already sitting with his hand on the pay button. He wasn't afraid. More annoyed with himself for not daring to ask. 3:33. The bell above the door clicked. He entered like always, quietly as if passing through glass. Mark followed him with his eyes. Everything repeated down to the detail. The light bulb, the toothbrush, the matches. Like a ritual. When the man handed over the bill, Mark looked at it properly for the first time. A 5. Smooth. The old coat of arms. The series, 1979. "Excuse me," Mark blurted out. Why do you buy these things?" The man lifted his gaze. Mark couldn't say what color his eyes were. He only heard, "I promised I'd come back." And then he was gone, through the door, leaving behind a coin, an old one, polished, the kind no one had used in over 30 years. Mark didn't know why this particular encounter stuck with him. Maybe because no one had looked him in the eyes for months, or maybe because there was something familiar in that silence. He suddenly realized this man wasn't the only one returning. Mark, too, kept coming back, inward. By day, the store was unremarkable. School kids grabbed sweets, truckers went for coffee and salted peanuts. Elderly folks came for bread, newspapers, and endless talk about the weather. Mark nodded to everyone as he should, smiled faintly with the corner of his lips. But at night, especially as it crept toward 3, he grew quieter. Something inside him tightened. He began checking the receipts, not for reports, for himself, for understanding. The first 8 visits from the mysterious customer raised no real questions. It all felt strange, but within the bounds of odd. There are always eccentrics. But on the 9th night, when the man spoke, Mark couldn't let it go. He felt as if he had touched something he wasn't meant to. He turned on the register and opened the transaction list from the past few days. All receipts were there, except one, yesterday's, and the day before. He scrolled downward all the way to the first night. Not a single record of a light bulb, matches, and toothbrush bought at 3:33. No cash payment matching the amount. Not even a $5 bill transaction. As if the man came, but the system never noticed. Mark sat back, staring at the screen. Maybe he missed something. Maybe a glitch. He ran the shift total, then pulled an old receipt from the trash, one of those that always remained after the night guest visits. On the white strip, nothing. The paper was blank. The thermal printer hadn't touched it. He ran the strip through his fingers. The paper was warm, as if something had in fact been printed, but not for him. He looked at the coin left that night. It still lay at the edge of the register, a Soviet 5 kopeck piece, polished by time, as if someone had carried it in their pocket for decades. Mark suddenly wondered, what if he wasn't the only one? What if someone had already tried to figure this out and failed? What if that man came back for a reason? He looked at the surveillance screen. 3:12, 20 minutes left until 3:33, and this time he decided he wouldn't just wait. The questions were over. Now the search would begin. He didn't know exactly what he was looking for. Maybe proof that something still made sense. Or maybe just the hope that someone else, too, was trying to fix what he himself once failed to. Mark knew he would see the same movements. He sat on a tall stool, holding an ink pen and a notepad from the drawer beneath the register. Old pages, once used for shift logs and supply lists, had now become a field for observations. At the top, he'd written, Night 10, 0333, item verification. He didn't turn on music, didn't eat, didn't get distracted. Everything was ready. At exactly 3:33, the doorbell let out a muted chime. Not sharp, not melodic, more like someone had nudged the door from inside. He entered, as always, not hurrying, not looking around. Mark watched. First stop, the electronics shelf. He picked up a light bulb, small, boxed, with a faded label, the kind used for nightlights or closets. Next, to the shelf near the register. Matches, a single box, the same brand, red stripe, thin black text across the middle. Always the same. And the toothbrush. Child's, with a plastic dinosaur on the handle. Color, blue. Age label, 3 to 5 years. Mark took notes as he watched. Light bulb, unchanged. Matches, the same. Toothbrush, the same. His handwriting grew more rigid. He knew what it was like to forget something small and then regret it for the rest of your life. When the man came to the register, Mark didn't ask anything. He simply rang up the items, even knowing the receipt would be blank. As he worked, he noticed the basket the man brought was slightly open on one side. Inside lay a fourth item, a toothbrush. Another one, pink, with a tiny fox image on the handle. Mark slowly looked at the man. He was already standing with the bill in his hand. As always, the old 5, carefully straightened between his fingers. This, is it for her? Mark asked softly, unsure where the words came from. Maybe the man really had been waiting for someone to just ask. But there was no reply. The man left the money, took the light bulb, matches, and the first toothbrush. But the pink one, he didn't take. He left. The door closed behind him almost soundlessly. Mark stood over the basket. It felt heavy, as if that toothbrush weighed more than the other items combined. He wrote, Night 10, first deviation, 1 item left behind. Mark couldn't let go of the thought about the 4th item. He placed the pink toothbrush beneath the counter. Not thrown out, not shelved, just kept. It lay beside coins and paper clips, a reminder that someone was supposed to take it and didn't. The following night, he powered on the old store computer. He connected directly to the cameras, pulled footage from previous nights, exported recordings from each visit, and started watching. On screen, the store in grayscale, static, silence. 3:33. The entrance camera jolted as if flinching, and there he was. The door cracked open. That same silhouette, man in a light-colored coat, briefcase, the same path, light bulb, matches, toothbrush. Mark fast-forwarded to the next night. Same thing, same movements, identical trajectory, like choreography. He slowed the footage, frame by frame, step by step, and then he noticed the shadow. It was there, but unmoving. It stayed fixed on the floor, like a stain, even as the man walked forward. The refrigerator light shifted. The camera picked up glares. But the shadow didn't. It seemed painted on. Mark froze. He switched to the side camera view. The man passed a mirrored display window. but his reflection was missing. The chip shelf reflected, the fridge too, even the battery stand, but not him. Mark rewound, again and again. Not a single frame where his face was clear, not one where he was distinct. It was like trying to recall a dream face, everything present but nothing solid. The cameras captured what was no longer there, as if he hadn't been filmed at all, as if the footage merely guessed he was there. Mark closed the computer. His heart pounded faster than usual. He checked the time. 3:18. 15 minutes until the next visit. He felt part of a cycle now. Not just a witness, but someone necessary. Not to the man, but to the one who remained in the dark. He stood and walked to the window display, approached the same spot. In the glass, only his own reflection stared back. But when he returned to the counter, moisture lingered on the pane, as if someone else had been watching too, from the inside. On the fourth night after discovering the pink toothbrush, Mark made a decision. He was done just observing. He preemptively removed the items, all three, the light bulb, the matches, and the toothbrush. He shifted them from their usual shelves, replaced boxes, moved price tags. Let something, anything, change. And most importantly, he turned off the lights. All of them. Not just the standby illumination, but the entire store. The cameras still ran, but the shop itself was drowned in total darkness, save for a faint glow from the register screen and the monitor in the back office. He wasn't trying to break the ritual. He wanted to understand it, or maybe test it. What happens when, instead of a machine on the other side, there's a man? He wanted to know if silence could speak, if truly listened to. Mark sat without a word. He didn't know what he was waiting for. Maybe for it all to vanish, for the visits to stop. At 3:32, the silence thickened. The store felt foreign, like it was no longer part of the city, but a sealed-off pocket of space, a closed container. 3:33. The bell rang, no light, no creak of the door, just that sound, pure, thin from somewhere inside. Mark switched to the monitor and saw the silhouette. He stood in front of the same shelf, though the items were gone, an empty display case, a black corner. But the man's hands moved as always. Took one, took the second, reached down for the toothbrush, slowly with total certainty that everything was in its place. Mark left the back room, quietly, no flashlight. Faint streetlight leaked through the blinds. He stopped behind a shelf just 10 feet from the figure. The man stood, head slightly bowed, as if waiting, and then turned. "Where are they?" the voice asked. Low, not angry, just tired. Mark didn't answer. The man walked to the register and laid down the bill. In the darkness, its polished surface caught the faintest gleam, but his hands trembled for the first time. She was afraid of the dark, couldn't fall asleep without the light, and without the toothbrush. She just waited until morning. Mark clenched his fists, not from fear, from pain, because in that voice he recognized his own guilt, in someone else's. The man left, but this time the door made no sound. He simply vanished. When the lights came on, the register froze. The screen showed an error. Mark bent down and opened the drawer beneath the counter. Inside lay all three items: the light bulb, the matches, the toothbrush, as if someone had placed them there earlier, or every time anew. He didn't return them. They simply were there. The next day, Mark came to the store during daylight. Not on schedule, not for his shift, just because he couldn't stay away. The night visit lingered in his mind. The man's words kept echoing. She was afraid of the dark. Everything had to be just right. They said this store used to be family-run. One owner had done everything by hand, even kept physical purchase logs. Two owners had come and gone since, but no one had touched the old furniture. The back room remained almost untouched, as if time had frozen inside. Mark opened an old cabinet behind the storage room, where piles of unsorted receipts, boxes of lost items, and yellowed reports had been collecting dust for years. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. Maybe something by feel, maybe just a sign. This store knew more than it let on. As if memory wasn't kept in the register, but in the walls. His fingers brushed against a thin folder labeled in marker, Archive, 1997, Children's Purchases. Inside, a stack of receipts, all under the same surname, the same item set, light bulb, toothbrush, matches, milk. Over and over, with a few days between. Always paid in cash. Name, Delroy. Mark furrowed his brow. He remembered, on the outskirts near where the store stood, there used to be a small house. Long gone now. Locals said there'd been a fire, or an electrical short. No one knew for sure. He typed the name into his phone. The first result, a scan from an old local archive. 1998, house fire on Savage Road. Man and 5-year-old girl killed. Suspected cause, faulty light bulb. Believed that the man was trying to repair wiring manually. Name of deceased, Harold Delroy. The girl, likely his daughter. Mother was away on business. Fire occurred around 3 a.m. Mark closed his eyes, his fingers gripped the paper. He understood. Those purchases were an attempt to undo a mistake. Again and again. To buy the light bulb before it sparked. The toothbrush, so the daughter could go to bed like always. The matches, maybe to replace a dangerous lighter he'd used back then. Not atonement, not punishment, memory, a loop. Rest that never comes. Mark thought if he had the chance, he'd go back too, until someone noticed. He carefully folded the receipts back, as if not wanting to disturb the paper. On the last one, a phone number, ancient, landline. At the bottom, written in tidy hand, if there's no time, leave it at the counter. I'll come back anyway. He remembered the man's voice. She wouldn't sleep until everything was there. Toothbrush, light, a kiss. It all had to be just right. On the 11th night, Mark didn't hide the items. He placed them on the shelf himself, the same ones from the old receipt. A soft white light bulb in a cardboard box. A matchbox, not from the new shipment, but from the old dusty batch. And 2 toothbrushes, one blue, one pink, both labeled 3 to 5 years. Mark opened the register in advance and placed inside the final found banknote. The very same 1979.5, polished smooth. He had no intention of charging. He just wanted this to end. For real. 3:33. The bell chimed, quieter than usual. He came in, but his steps were different. Not mechanical, cautious, as if he sensed something had changed. The man approached the shelf, stopped, saw 2 toothbrushes. His hand trembled slightly, but he picked up both. At the register, he said nothing and didn't place money down. He simply nodded, and this time looked Mark in the eye. You left the light on, he said quietly. Thank you. Mark didn't know if the man had forgiven himself, but he knew how much it mattered that someone had tried. The man took the bulb, the matches, the toothbrushes, and left. The door closed. The bell fell silent. And that was it. No shadow on the floor, no entry on the cameras. Mark sat back down. He stared at the empty basket. And then he saw it. In the drawer beside the receipt roll lay a scrap of paper, yellowed, written in a child's hand. Dad, don't forget the toothbrush. And the light. I don't like the dark. Promise me you won't forget. L. Dot, the signature, shaky, like a child still learning to write. Mark folded the paper, put it in his pocket, and stepped outside. The night was quiet, a gentle breeze. No rain, no car horns, no flickering sign above the entrance. Just peace. And on the glass, he cleaned every shift. There was now a handprint. Small, childlike, warm. Mark didn't wipe it away, because he knew handprints fade. But the decision to keep them, that stays forever.